What's up guys, my name is Aaron Blackie and in this video we're going to look at a few unorthodox, underutilized and extremely powerful standing submission attacks. I'm a black belt in BJJ and Judo and I'm a current professional mixed martial artist fighting out of Australia.
Judo black belt, Jiu-Jitsu black belt.
If you haven't already, please support this channel by hitting that subscribe button and we'll get started. I stand by my belief that BJJ was designed for application in the context of no-holds-barred fighting in self-defense combative scenarios. If you're a student of the art, it is necessary that you're able to keep the fight on the floor against a resisting opponent aiming to hurt you or to keep yourself from being taken to the floor in a situation involving multiple attackers. For this reason, I've always sought to teach students effective takedowns and clinch tactics to deal with realistic combative scenarios. However, an element of BJJ for self-defense that is often overlooked due to the difficulty in pulling these techniques off safely against resisting opponents is standing submission holds. Position and control are key conditions that should be gained before attempting submissions on the ground. This hierarchy of attack may not necessarily hold true on the feet. The reason it is so important on the ground is that the act of movement when attacking submission presents an already disadvantaged opponent with a space to possibly escape their poor position. This means the wager in self-defense or prize fighting scenarios is too high to attack with submissions when control of the grips is not held in coordination with a dominant position. By gaining positional dominance and gripping control, it is likely if your opponent defends the submission, you will still be able to maintain positional advantage over them. On the feet, however, you do not have a positional advantage. Gravity is affecting you and your opponent equally, leaving you with only angles and mechanics to stack the deck in your favor. It also changes the wager of attacking with submission holds. If you concede on your attempted submission hold, you will not have sacrificed positional dominance and consequently been placed at a disadvantage, but rather at worst in a neutral position. This means standing submission holds are high reward and low risk attacks. Furthermore is the fact that in realistic combative scenarios, there may be multiple attackers, in which case the floor is to be avoided at all costs. And additionally, they can be used to elicit very strong and predictable responses from an opponent that may then be exploited to gain angles, dominant gripping mechanics, or gravitational advantage by setting up takedowns. Remember, you attack submissions from top and bottom when the situation requires you to, so why not build the capacity to perform them from the clinch as well? If you don't have a versatile range of standing submission holds or would like to learn more, then this is for you. We are going to go over a couple cool standing submission attacks, starting with the underhook spin away. Okay, for the underhook spin away, the first thing we need to do is establish this arm wrestling grip. So thumb to thumb, palm to palm. Ideally, once we've got that, we'll be able to release this underhook and lock up the gripping mechanism before performing the submission. Okay, so we can see there we've connected our right hand, which was the underhook, on top of the arm wrestling grip. That's making a nice tight lock, very hard for our opponent to extract this arm. Okay, now when we apply it, we want to rotate around our central axis. So our head is still above my hips and I'm using my ankle, knee and hip to produce force in that rotation. Very important that I don't break at the hips, bending my head down. Far less effective at producing force, which is very important when performing standing submissions as they need to be applied quickly. So just highlighting the risk versus reward benefit that standing submissions have over submissions applied on the floor is what happens when it goes wrong. So the example for the underhook spin away is it puts me in perfect position. If we look, I've got outside foot, so my opponent basically has a dominant angle on me. However, that enables me to spin straight into an elbow strike. Okay, then I can re-engage if I want, disengage, but my opponent hasn't been given the opportunity to gain advantage over me at the cost of me attempting that submission attack. Okay, the Hammerlock Reachover is done in two stages. First, we need to establish the hammerlock. So we're going to push with our underhook arm around the back, and that's going to meet our wrist control arm, which is also pushing. So very nice movement to start with, because it'll often have an action-reaction result from that underhook wrist control position. So as we push, our opponent will counter by doing the opposite of what we're doing. So then we switch to a pull and can use that to off-balance our opponent in this direction for things like throws. Okay, so if it works, and we get the hammerlock. If it doesn't, we get a nice reaction. So In this case, it's worked. I've managed to create space here for this wrist to sneak through and capture on the forearm. I then lock it nice and tight to my opponent's body. Remember, when controlling a limb, you always want it against your own body, your opponent's body, or some type of immovable object like a wall, if possible. From there, we're going to look at finishing the hammerlock submission. Okay, so my opponent backsteps as we start to employ wrestling style takedowns. That then enables us to get his head horizontal to his hips. So we've broken his structure, the standing position, head's horizontal to hips, our head's still above our hips. Okay, so we have a mechanical force advantage. From here, our free arm, which was controlling the wrist, is going to reach over and take hold of the wrist once again. Once we've gained control of the wrist with our free arm, we may then release the hammerlocking arm, not before, or the opponent will slip. From there, we're going to take a 2-on-1 grip and then drive the wrist towards the ear, creating a Kimura style submission effect. Okay, the standing Japanese necktie submission, performed again from the front headlock. We're going to drive our arm capture side nice and deep. Okay, so when we can see our wrist coming up through the ear and shoulder here, we're going to loop our elbow from this position where it originally would have been over the top of the back of the head. Okay, now that's going to create this sort of zigzag locking mechanism that will stop our opponent from head slipping through here and freeing himself from the hold. Once I get that loop, I want to drive my elbows together, making it nice and tight. From here, we're going to pull in, retracting our shoulder blades and drive our hips forward to create the strangulation. So demonstrating the transition from the front headlock lasso into the Japanese necktie position. You can see the elbows here are nice and tight together. They're not flared out, giving your opponent space to slip the head through the middle there, and it's a gable grip palm to palm.
Hopefully you've enjoyed learning a bit about what these unorthodox attacks have to offer. Please remember that standing submission holds are applied with a lot of force because you have less control and on your feet, making them more dangerous to practice compared to submissions that are applied on the floor. Be very diligent in ensuring you do not fully extend arm locks, give your opponents time to tap, and just release the submission hold if they choose not to submit. We've seen the effectiveness of leg locks, which were also neglected as they had been viewed as being excessively dangerous to practice. You can and should add these powerful attacks into your arsenal, but please do it intelligently. And if you would like to learn more, head over to FIGHTIQ, where we have an entire course with over 25 different standing submission attacks from a huge range of different gripping mechanisms.